And I will invite your thoughts and comments from not by way of reporting what was spoken about in the room, but perhaps the sense, the sentiment that you found with each other from the introductory part and with the inquiry, an invitation for us to focus on renewal. So I will make a space for it now, and then I'd like to lead into some starter ideas about renewal. But let us first bring the collective mutualized wisdom here with bringing some of your voices. So who is ready to share from your experience, please? Please, Susan.
Well, first, what was so lovely, we were three people from three different parts of the world. So there was this global experience with that. And something that we talked about, the world is, change happens when people they reach their bottom and then say, I'm tired of this and I absolutely am going to change. And I think the world has reached or is reaching that bottom and ready to change. And the hope that was brought up in our conversation is, the hope is individual, how each one of us has to begin that change within ourselves.
Two important observations. We just never know whether we have reached what you describe as rock bottom. There is always a rock below the rock and below that rock.
Yeah, a question I've been asking for decades. I mentioned that is, how far down this rabbit hole does the world want to go before it decides it wants to turn around and start going back towards the light?
Well, Susan, this is this observation about regressive cycles. They do have an important developmental and evolutionary role. We do know in our own personal experiences, when we lose it, so to speak, then how much damage do we want to cause before we decide to pick it up? We've each had the experiences. This is part of the human experience. What is so uniquely different about this time is our destructive capacity is so exponential, and so much is really at stake. And it is that gives me a sense, especially with looking at also future generations, that and especially the toddlers that are showing up now, how are they perhaps equipped? I ask myself, how are they being made ready? I do feel that very important dimension in this is the cross-generational. We each have something to contribute. We need the people into their 90s who still carry the wisdom of the earlier transition in the 20th century, and we do need the 80s, the 70s, the 60s, the 50s, all the way to younger generations. That cross-generational conversation is, I believe, one aspect of the renewal. Thank you. Let's have some more voices, please. Kyriaki, please.
Yes, hello everyone. It's great to be here today with you, and that gives me hope. The fact that you show up to discuss these things gives me hope. And it was great in our sharing time. We had a lady that lives in a war zone, and she says, I choose hope. So choice, hope is a choice. And also there was Liz. She was saying, I was doing my will. And then I thought, I'm not going anywhere. I want to be in the shift. So yeah, what gives hope and renewal? It's very much what we adhere to, what we tether in our way of thinking and being, and what we are choosing to process and believe in. So that's what I would say at the moment.
Indeed. Thank you, Kyriaki. So the sense of choosing to claim your own power, each of our own powers, to shape our life, shape our direction, shape what it is that we focus on, shape what we are connecting and tethering to. Any other voices, either with comments on your experience in rooms or any questions about what we covered in the first part? And if not, I'm perfectly happy to lead into, please, Liz.
I just wanted to clarify a little. I'm not alone in hearing people around me, and up until today, including myself, of saying, I'm ready to go. I'm done with this. If something happens, I'll check out. I'm not afraid, just be done with it. And my thinking was that way yesterday when I was talking to my attorney and writing my will and writing my papers for my healthcare advocacy. And he's like, why don't you go home and think about this? I'm like, nah, I don't know. I know what I want. And today, it's as if I remembered, we're not here just for us. I'm here for this shift in humanity. So when I think about little Liz, I'm like, oh, I don't want to suffer. I don't want to have a hard time. Oh, I don't want to have to have disease. I don't want people to help me. And I'm like, Liz, every minute of every choice of every day, it influences, it affects this collective change. So a shift from now being able to say to people, we need you and you need me, so that we can make this internal shift and then be part of the change that we're here for today to create, that we believe in. And so it feels really big to say yes to the work of choosing life and change now. Okay, I had to say that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Liz. In a minute, when we talk about renewal, we'll describe the sense of choosing to re-examine and renew your own blue operating system, including your own metaphysics. You are describing the interior process of reflecting and contemplating and saying, no, that thought pattern, that belief system is something that I choose to update right here, right now. I'm rescripting the way I talk to myself about this. And, and we will invite, when we do so, that we do want to talk to ourselves about the updating and the renewal, because the entire industrial media complex continually shower us with messages that we are internalizing, and unless we choose to communicate a different message to ourselves and talk to ourselves about the updating that we choose, as you just demonstrated, we probably will follow someone else's brief rather than the one we chose to embrace for ourselves. Please, Perry.
Recently seen a lot more of these videos that show an animal asking for help to a human. There's several particular ones. I'll say this one about the whale that was trapped by a rope. And a shark came to a boat and called the boat to where the whale was at. So in thinking today, I believe that the planet and everything about it is showing us it needs help. And it makes me think and gives me hope that I'm human and I might have help. And within the human race, we might be the place where the help needs to come from. So I think it's in our hands. I believe that we have an opportunity, and that because it's in our hands, we can do something.
Thank you. The planet is calling for our help. Our brothers and sisters, humans, are calling for help, and we call ourselves for help. So you are offering me an entry to this next part, and then we'll bring your voices on this again. So this is what we are about to explore, where the inquiry is, with those layers of system, of the blue operating system being captured. What is a way to imagine renewal? What is a starter blueprint that will lead us to actually facilitate what we're describing here, which I'm using the fleur-de-lis symbol that has been used from the beginning of time to represent the emergence of life and has this threefold nature to it, tied in a unified purpose. Well, so to embark on this inquiry, I ask, where do I begin? I'm going to talk about this in the first person language, because I want to listen to what I say too, because I'm speaking, I want to send this message also to my soul and to my system. And also I want to invite you to perhaps be with this inquiry in a way that you can choose to take on board whatever is right for you in your way and style, and make your own what is yours to make your own. So by all means, you're hearing my voice, but you may choose to overlay this with your own internal voice if it's true for you and you want to say yes to that. So I ask myself, okay, where do you begin the process of renewal? Where do you begin the process of upgrade? If the realization here is that the operating system that enabled us to come into the miracles, so to speak, and of the convenience of modernity, we now see that the ecosystem and so many of the infrastructures that we enjoy, they are beginning to crumble, and the whole project of modernity is coming through tremendous struggle. Where do I begin a place of renewal and upgrade? Well, I first go out to the outdoors. I first want to be in the presence of nature. I first want to reconnect with nature, because it's in the reconnecting with nature when I step into the forest and I look at the forest floor and I see the rotting branches and the leaves, and I think, well, the forest is dying. But then I lift my eyes up and I see the fresh green on the trees, and I say, now the forest is rebirthing itself, because the forest is actually allowing both what is ready to die is dying, and what is ready to rebirth is rebirthing. And if I'm not 20 minutes a day, or preferably an hour a day, in the outdoors, not with devices, not with the noise of modern life, if I separate myself from it and I don't give myself that access, I'm not as replenished and as renewed as I can be. So renewal begins for me in reconnecting with nature. And then it continues with reconnecting with others, right here, right now, us coming together. If I have a day where I haven't connected with somebody, with a friend, with a circle, with one of the communities that I participate in, where we can encourage and fortify each other about the meaning of this time and what we are here, what we bargained, what we contracted by showing to life at this time, then I'm not as renewed and as energized as I can be. So these are the first two places I go to, nature and my purpose friends and my community of purpose, one of which is right here, right now with all of you. And thirdly, I work daily to be in communion with the sacred blessing realms, the invisible, unseen blessing realms that I feel and experience when I'm out in nature. I feel and experience when we come together. And I feel and experience in literally everything I do, every moment of my life. And when I forget to remember that, I don't feel as well. I don't feel as vibrantly energized as I know I can. So we each have our ways. Some do it through meditation, some do it through prayer, some do it through being in nature, some do it through communal gatherings, some do it through rituals, some do it through working in the garden, some do it by doing the dishes and cleaning up and by taking care of their children or grandkids. There are endless ways to do so. It's the recognition that we are not flying here on our own. We are everywhere we go, the blessing is right here next to us. Can we be open to it? Can we be open to the renewal and updating nature of it? So that's where it begins for me, in these simple ways where I get to feel life. I get to feel life in nature. I get to feel life when I'm with friends. I get to feel life when I sense into all that's blessing us every day of our life. This miracle that you can go to sleep and get up refreshed. Something washed over you and through you, your system through the night at the foundational biological level, and you are given the chance for a new day. What an extraordinary miracle. I never want to take this for granted. So that's where I begin. And then I realize, okay, so now I have to build my renewal into the entire blue operating system. I have to be prepared to consider how am I ready to update my understanding and belief about what is real. How am I ready to update my quest for knowledge and perceptions about the human case? Well, let me concretize it with the following example. Again, as I said earlier, somebody would say, I don't know, I don't have any metaphysics. I believe this is the world and I don't know that there is anything else. Well, fair enough, if that's what you believe, it's okay, but that is your metaphysics. Here is an example that is part of my metaphysics. So 9 out of 10 people, if you ask them, they will tell you that today they believe is the continuation of yesterday. That this moment is the continuation of the moment before. I was also brought up with that belief system around me. But at some point in my life, I realized that was only part of the true and not the larger part. And I decided that I was going to embrace, it was in my early 30s, I decided I was going to embrace a new consideration, a new contemplation into my beliefs, which was that today was not a continuation of yesterday, but that today was a day where new potential, new permission, new emergent life was finding access to humanity. So I've contemplated this for many, many years. And it brought me, between other things, to realize that the way to live a universal life is to realize that while the universe is accelerating its expansion, I too can choose to accelerate and be more defined by who I am becoming than by who I was yesterday. Most of what I'm doing these days is quite different to what I did 5 years ago, where most of the time was dedicated, 5-6 years ago, most of the time was dedicated to work with companies in Silicon Valleys and all around the world. I still do that, but the majority of my work is what I do here right now with you. So I've shifted into realizing that this was going to be more of my work. That was possible with this idea that we each get to show up for today and I can discover myself anew. So this is something I talk to myself about every day. I talk to my soul. I talk to my brain and my mind about it. So I'm describing in the upcoming chapter we are about to release in Portals into the Soul. There is a whole segment that is offering coaching, how to talk to your brain. I talk to my system about this because for so many years it heard from everyone else around me that when you're 39, it's the continuation of 38, and when you're 40, it's the continuation of 39. And I realize now, when you get into your 50s and into your 60s and into your 70s, you are not just defined by all that you've done before. You can actually birth yourself anew. And when you do so, you are beginning to sense the universalis human. You are birthing the universal properties that are not defined by carnal, chronological timeline. That's part of what I have chosen to focus on as I work on the renewal of my metaphysics, my beliefs. Now, when I come to updating the epistemic framework, the knowledge I have about knowledge, that's what the fancy word epistemology means. Well, one of the places I go to is how extraordinary that science gave us so many new discoveries over the last several hundred years. And then I bring myself to the realization that all that we know from science only ever so far stretched to 5% perhaps of what there is to know, probably less. Because we only were able to recognize and see the universe by 5%. So if we know the universe, identify the parts of the universe, the part we identified is only 5%, we only know ourselves, and we only know of knowledge by 5%. So how do I reframe my thinking about everything that I know when I remember that what I know is only 5% of what there is to know? It conjures up in me humility. It conjures up in me sense of awe and wonder. It conjures up in me a playful discovery that I see with my grandson. So there is what I'm describing? I'm describing the awakening of the kind of sentiments that I invite us into when we inquire into what does it mean to update our belief systems and what we know. It means I'm asking myself every day, what and how am I prepared to renew and update my beliefs and my perceptions? And then I ask, well, so how are you prepared to rejuvenate the ethical views you hold about what is good? And how are you prepared to revitalize the what is right inquiry? Where my brief to myself is, well, where and how am I ready to examine and update what I hold to be good, what I hold to be right, what I hold to be wise, what I hold to be upliftingly beautiful? In the small things of the every moment of life, with the people I love, with my family, and with all the endeavors we each choose to engage in. Because that is ultimately the energy and the tethering connection, the spiritual know-how that I propose we can bring to those next two layers of discovery. Now, so remember, in the Blue operating system before, what held that next level was the 3 branches of power. So now I ask myself, well, how will I choose to upgrade my self-authoring government in how I guide, how I enact, how I regulate my everything? It begins with how I regulate my energies, because everything begins with energy. It's the foundational property of life. How do I regulate my physical energy, emotional, mental, spiritual, relational energy? And then how do I guide and enact and regulate my thoughts, my feelings, my inner life, the recognition that I'm not one, that I'm many, and that I have parts that maybe I've neglected, and they have their way of sending me messages that I've neglected them, and that I want to pause and reintegrate and listen inside to their voice. And how do I choose to attune to language? What is the new vocabulary? What is the new grammar that I might choose to embrace in the living exploration of my renewal? Because if I stay in the same grammar and the same vocabulary and the same conversation I was in before, if I'm not creating new conversations, first of all in myself and with others, I'm not facilitating the new spiritual connections and the new possible renewal that I want to uplift the system. And then how do I treat my body in a wiser way? Because my body is a sacred carrier of the permission to partake, to participate in this life. And then how do I move about? How do I use movement? We are developing a body of work here on portals in the idea of IHOW, internal human orchestrating system. And it shows the way we can use the capacity to move about, shift energy, and be part of that renewal. And these are, I could have placed 20 others, but this is what I have chosen. How do I regulate my attention? Very important in this device-centric environment. Do I shift my eyes and attention to something else when I'm out in nature? And then how do I manage my fears? How do I regulate my fears? Do I use the energy of fear as I did 40 years ago? Or have I recognized and do I bring an updated, upgraded appreciation that fear is part of the internal system, internal communication system, and is there a way for me to use the energy of fear to actually catalyze an update? And finally, I added here, yes, how do I use pain? If you are into your 40s and 50s and 60s and 70s, how you treat your body and pain is important, because you want to be still a functioning agent through this process, not deny those elements, but actually engage them in a constructive way as part of your renewal. And very important, sleep. How do I utilize sleep as part of my renewal? So again, you could add another 20 elements here. What I wanted to demonstrate was that the self-authoring government is where I choose to engage in the guidance and the regulation of self-renewal, which leads me now to asking, well, so how and where will I upgrade and renew my agreements, my ways of engagement, my contributions, my expressions in all of my relationships, in all the different ecosystems that I partake in and play with? Well, how do I choose to renew my agreements with my family? If you've been living with the same person for many years, or if you're living with a new person, you know that agreements work best when we make them soft and work diligently to continue to update them. Life is not, this is why it is so important, because I said earlier, one of the important elements in the Blue operating system was the establishment of law, the legal system. But the legal system, in its purest precedent-based mentality, cuts out life. In life, agreements is a dynamic, evolving domain. So yes, the legal system enables something very important into the modernity project. When we enter a living, dynamic system, it doesn't want to be frozen by precedents. It wants to develop in our families, with our friends, with our communities, living systems that can continue to facilitate update. Okay, I decided to put here the three big struggling domains. Everybody struggles with money or not. Your feelings, your relationships, your thoughts about money, with food, with technology. Those are simply critical relational dynamics. And media, that's right. So these were the four dimensions where we struggle in our relationships with these four. How do we upgrade our agreements and our collaborations with these domains? And then I decided, well, let's just add these additional four. The ecologies we create inside our homes and our houses and around, the work we engage in, the different dimensions of work, the different roles we play. In every day, you may play several roles. You may be a partner, you may be a parent, you may be a friend, you may be a leader. How do you shapeshift between those different roles and what they demand of you? And how do you use this energy of renewals in this capacity, in this space? So one of the dimensions of renewal is, how do you transcend, how do I transcend the various polarities that naturally will arise in any circumstance we step into? So this is what I will offer as the starter blueprint for renewal. And I would like to see if there are any comments, questions, and then I have one more closing invitation as an exercise for us to end with. And in fact, maybe I'll bring it now. I want you to, in the presence of this, please, would you take a moment when all this is fresh to create your own, because this was me demonstrating how do I create for myself a brief for renewal. Would you take a moment to create your own self-guiding brief or prayer? How would you encourage yourself, fortify yourself for your own renewal? I'm going to go quiet, then I'll go to Lisa and Peter.
I would like to invite Peter to actually start and read his comment, because he made a beautiful comment, a wonderful comment when you were speaking. Over to you, Peter.
Please, Peter.
I didn't make the comment that I think Lisa is referring to, but I had my hand up.
So please.
So, hello everybody, nice to be with you. Really enjoy this. Well, I would wonder if looking at this violet prompt here, a self-guiding brief or prayer to encourage or fortify your renewal. I continuously ask myself, why? Why do I want to develop? Why do I want to fortify myself? And what are the causes? Because I often see need. And need is fine. It can get you going for a few days or weeks, but it doesn't really endure. It doesn't really have the sustainability. Because if I'm in short of money, of course I'll start to work for money. If my family is not doing well, of course I'll try to do something for my family. But I've been looking for a long time in my life, and I've also found deeper persuasion, but that's not so strong in me. And that deeper persuasion is more, I love it. life is just beautiful, and to develop is fascinating, and it's like a completely self-generating urge or drive. So that's in a self-guiding brief that I use. Why do you engage, Peter? And I look myself in the
Thank you.
when I look at the whole structure, because you invited also to comment on the whole map that you're making here and the layout. When I've said yes, I want to play, then this map is perfect, and I can go anywhere on the map and work. I can work with the morals and think about morals. I can work with world history and the French Revolution and anything. The problem I had for me when I started my journey, and that was a problem that's been accompanying me for all time, is why say yes? So I see all this possibility and proposition, and this what we can go to universities and learn, and what we can be, if we're lucky, go to a really good guru or teacher or something we find. But from the beginning, I was depressed, and I had the education to know a lot about these things, but I really did not have the will to do it. So the really fundamental question, if we're looking into the world, like the fundamental line, reconnect with nature, communion with the sacred blessing realms, reconnect with others. A person who's apathetic or depressed won't do those things. So I see for the future, and it was also spurred in the little meeting room, that I think some people who have this foundation in themselves and strong will be very useful for others, because there will, as somebody mentioned, there will be people coming to ask for help. So there will be like the whale and the shark. Humans will come and they will ask for help, and some need to be ready to meet it when it comes.
Thank you. Thank you, Peter. So you landed on this very important brief. One of the best advice in any crisis point is find somebody to help, because when you help somebody, you help yourself. So right there is an invitation and a brief. I want to see if there are any other voices who are ready to share before we close your brief, your prayer, your words of guidance to yourself and or to your friends, please.
So what I was going to say, Aviv, is, and thank you for that, Peter. I thought you did make a comment earlier. There was a comment later from me, Peter. Yes, you did. Yeah. And the second Peter Michael, said the agreement is a precursor to a contract with self in the ever-evolving domains of life, which I thought was really poignant. What I was going to say is, we talk about the human deal, but isn't this the human deal? All of it? To constantly be renewing ourselves, updating, changing, evolving, maturing, and then offering back to the furtherment of humanity, and that which allows humanity to even exist, or not allows, that's not the right word, created us as humans. So for me, this is what we're meant to do. And as you speak about your grandchildren, and I have grandchildren too, and you watch them evolve and grow up and mature, it's such a natural process. We are processing machines, and it's so natural for us to process things and to keep looking and updating and renewing and thinking about what's next, and being able to admit, I'm changing. I thought this and I don't think this now. So thank you for all of this. It's been excellent. And onward we go. One other thing I will say is, in this process of what we do, how we are as humans, to have community is such an important part. And it really feels today that we are creating a community here. We've had events and they've all been wonderful, but today it really feels a little different, that it's sort of and I don't know what's to come. As you always say, we don't know. It's an experiment, but it feels like there is something that wants to happen. And this is part of creating our community of support for one another and for the future.
Thank you very much, Lisa. Let us bring, please, Denise, please.
Thank you. I was just thinking, you are loved and supported by creation. Believe in that. So you don't rely on your own strength or even a community strength, but that there is something higher that loves and supports, and lean on that, lean into that.
One of the realizations you are bringing to us, Denise, is that when we looked at the earlier formation of the blue operating system, what I describe as the blue operating system, it can get very clinical, it can get very intellectual, it can get very conceptual. That's part of what happened in the modernity project. We got separated from feelings. We got separated from the sense of the natural support of life. We got distanced from the sense that you are describing. You are being loved. You are being supported. And I'm still reflecting on a point from Peter a few minutes ago when he said, you know, if you're depressed and you don't feel that you have the energy to do much, you are deeply in a place where perhaps you don't have an answer to the why. How do you awaken that? Well, so we get back to what awakens life in the first place. And can you find a way to go beyond words to experience the feelings and the senses that are foundational for life, such as what you described? You are supported. There is a miracle in the way we show up here, and we find ourselves often with adults that are only as half equipped as we hope they would be to take care of us, but they still take care of us in most circumstances, because there is something about the vitality of the permanent impulse of life that inducts even half-educated, half-prepared young parents to take care of their young, even when they are themselves under stress. So, thank you. Let me see if there is any other hand. Is anybody else ready to share?
Yes, if it's the brief, I don't know, but I wanted to make a remark about the first part. What caught me was what you said about when someone hurts you by something they say. It may be like pain in your arm. You need to pay attention to it. Maybe there's something that needs to be done about it. And so it gives me a kind of a remedy for taking things less personal and creating the space that this may indicate that something needs to be done, and that is exactly why it hurts. That is one thing. And the following is part of the brief to myself. If a human being, and in this case myself, feels really sad, so you feel the cry within, it is wise, if you're in the right circumstance, to give it space, because this crying can alleviate stress and create space in the system, especially when no one is listening to you. You're not disturbing anyone apart from the dog maybe in your neighborhood, and it can it can clean up the system, the crying. And why am I saying this? If we only know 5% of ourselves, maybe this allowing this process and surrendering to that process can create more insight into what this being is about. So my new intention is to give myself more air and lightness about looking at life, the life that I've been given as an adventure, and to not update so much the outer, but more update this whole map that you've been showing, and take it more as a game instead of all this heavy, serious, it needs to be right.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you, Amy. So the blueprint that I shared is potentially a blueprint for your development practice, your spiritual practice, your living practice. And the central idea in it is that we are each self-authored, we are each a self-authoring human. We are each responsible. See, in different times, you'd go to a teacher or a guru who would tell you what you need to do. But part of the premise we are exploring here is that we have entered this epochal moment, and one of the potentials in this epochal moment is that the human being is more fully awakened into its fuller potential. And that means that each person is invited, if you like, summoned to be responsible for themselves fully, which means you get to curate, I get to curate, each one of us, we get to curate our own unique cosmology of practices and development framework. Now, so if you remember the initial slide, let me just bring it up for a minute because it will demonstrate the point. We can see in the world that often people try to do something, say, bring about a reform in, say, in the cultural or the political arena. Are you seeing my marker?
Yes.
You are. Okay. See, somewhere up in the system. But if the system is not connected to life and to a belief system and to a knowledge framework and to ethics and morals that will support that, then the transformation agenda is not sustainable, is weak. On the other hand, when we go in ourselves and we try to everything just solve at a spiritual level, sometimes we are bypassing the subsidiarity principle in our own life, because sometimes we do need to take care of a particular issue in a practical sense right in front of us. So that capacity to move up and down the system, to know if there is something in my garden that needs removing, it needs removing. It doesn't need me praying on it. I mean, I can sit down and pray on it, it's great, but that will be me bypassing the need in the garden for me to remove something so the bush that I want to see growing will grow. So that is part of the self-authoring, self-regulating, self-directing nature of this invitation here, which is at what level do you want to address the system? We are each responsible. That is an important idea to bring to life in what we are exploring today. I am in charge. I get to choose at what level I approach the opportunities of my life. Friends, we are almost out of time. I have maybe time for one last voice if anybody wants to bring one more thing, and if not, we'll wish each other a wonderful day. And I do have a tidy mind. It reminded me that I wanted to bring one more last thing, so here it is. We are just releasing today an adjacent inquiry. We are going to be releasing and building a series we call the Teacher's Journey. The most important invitation in this is where we just landed in the conversation, which is the invitation to recognize that we can each be our own guide, our own teacher. So let me drop this into the chat. Thank you again for your participation. And Lisa, I bring it to you to bring us home.
Thank you, Aviv. Thank you, everyone. Leaves so much to ponder. There's so much information here. I do encourage you to get on the Portals of Perception website, because there's wonderful recordings and videos and marvelous information that helps us all as we continue this journey. So thank you. And until next time, may it continue.
Thank you, Lisa. Let us all bring our voices into the room to greet each other and say goodbye.
Good night.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.